So in all the generations, there's maybe less than 10 tailors who have ever had a chance to work on a body like Phil Heath. So we have a collection of clothing that really accommodates Phil's lifestyle while simultaneously paying tribute to the brand of Phil Heath.
And this is LGFG.
All right, so let's talk about Phil Heath. Now remember, we're going to be looking at this from a tailor's perspective. We're really doing a tailoring breakdown. The first thing that a tailor is going to look at is going to be the body shape. And when you're working with a guy like Phil Heath, I think he's a 7-time Mr. Olympia. So this is Phil the Gift Heath, man. We're talking about a guy that has a body that fits into maybe a category that perhaps there's 5 other bodies in the world that would fit it. And we're talking out of like 9 billion people. So 50 years ago, you would have never seen that body. There was nobody that large, period. So in all the generations, there's maybe less than 10 tailors who have ever had a chance to look and work on a body like Phil's. So this is a fairly unique challenge, right? Now, thankfully for us, we've made wardrobes before we did Phil. We've made wardrobes for Eddie Hall. So you can see our collection for Eddie Hall. We've done Brian Shaw. So these are a little bit different from Phil because they're not technically bodybuilders, but there are some similarities we could learn from because of the incredible disproportionate proportions of guys that can lift an inordinate amount of weight. These are not normal bodies, and there are some signs, of course. Aside from just what you see, there's also stuff that you just have to interpret as a tailor. So we've done Eddie Hall, we've done Brian Shaw, but thankfully, we've also done Martin Ford, who's much more of a bodybuilder type. And as you get into the sort of ultra bodybuilders, we've done Ronnie Coleman. And that's where it gets a little bit difficult. So we're talking about a guy. Let's look at this book, the Michael Franzese Guide to Style and Elegance. So this is everything about tailoring. And we're going to look at the body. And, the body that most closely matches Phil's is a trapezoid shape. Yes, he's got a significant disparity between his, his shoulders and his stomach, but he's not skinny. These bodybuilders today, man, when they're not training for a competition, they're bulking, they're big. They're much more of a trapezoid than an inverted triangle. But nonetheless, even then we have to deal with a lot of specific bodily idiosyncrasies that we're going to get into right now. By the way, if you're learning something from this video, I would love for you to subscribe to our channel. We have so much information here about learning how to be a better version of yourself. There's so many facets about becoming the person you'll one day become. And right now you're becoming the person you'll one day become. So subscribe to this channel, give us a like. It'll be worth it for you. So the first thing to understand is that not all patterns, due to the shape of Phil Heath, not all patterns will look good on his garments. So you don't really want too many chalk stripes. However, we made an exception for Phil. I did want a chalk stripe suit in Phil's collection because he is so imposing. That's actually part of his image in this case.
You're an OG of lifting or of weight bodybuilding, like at the top of the echelon.
Yes.
So you need an OG suit. Boom. Nice. This is a killer double-breasted charcoal pinstripe. I mean, this is like organized crime fashion at its best, and you are going to look amazing in this. Again, we have the wide lapels to draw it in. This is a double-breasted, how they're traditionally done. This is going to look great. Let's try this on.
Perfect.
Other patterns that work great on muscular athletic men, great for nail heads, bird's eyes, great for Prince of Wales, great for houndstooths. Because Phil is on camera a lot, we don't want the moire effect, so we, again, stayed a little bit away from houndstooth, because if he wears a houndstooth and he goes on TV, like the song says, that's amore. We don't want that, right? So you want micro patterns like tattersalls, you want ginghams. Florals look great on athletic men because there's such a compensation for them being so big and powerful that you put like a fun floral pattern on them, and then it kind of makes them look less dangerous, but like they are dangerous. So it's this kind of like, it's kind of like saying I could kick your ass, but I'm a nice guy. And that's a good thing, right? Like being a monster and then kind of being cool. Like you want a cool monster as your friend, So florals work great. We definitely did some Giza 45 cons for Phil.
Look at this bad boy.
That is, I can already tell.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that gorgeous? Let's get it out of the bag and you really see the sheen on it. So with this fine cotton that's very narrow and very long staple, you get better designs and more reflection, but feel that guy.
Wow.
That's amazing.
let's look at the configurations for a second. So there are some very difficult things about tailoring bodies of that size. Number one, the pants are like very hard to tailor because you have calves that are massive. So you need to basically cut for a bow leg, even though the guy's not bow leg. The bow legs when your legs are like this, they're not straight. And it requires but you have to cut almost like bow-leggedness in the depth rather than the width of the pants because the calves are going to be such a thing.
Tell me what you feel.
Well, as I'm walking, I notice how stretchy it really is, and that's the biggest thing for me because my quads are obviously bigger than the average guy. It's never easy to find pants.
Right.
But to be able to move around, I mean, to actually, if I had to squat, I don't feel uncomfortable.
Any other suit, I would have expected to hear noise when you did that.
Yeah, but it didn't.
So the pants are going to be a challenge. And then, of course, you can't go tapered, and it's very difficult to go flat front because you have such a discrepancy between the seat and the waist. So the flat front is going to just cut in too much. So you have to think pleats are just going to look better. And then as you go up to the jacket, you have these disproportionately wide arms on a disproportionately wide shoulder. But on the tailoring side, the shoulder is very difficult on a muscular guy. The reality is the shoulder on a very muscular guy is actually not where the shoulder ends. It's a little bit before that. So something I know from tailoring for Ronnie Coleman, for Eddie Hall, for Brian Shaw, for Greg Doucette, for Mr. Anatoly, and now Phil Heath, is when you have these massive shoulders, you actually want to cut the shoulders a little bit narrower. And then as they put the suit on, you are going to get an arm that sort of exceeds past the shoulder line, but that's the correct way to tailor for an extremely muscular man. And not many tailors know that because they just haven't worked with a body of those proportions. I've worked with the who's who of the bodybuilding world, which is why the LGFG suits on bodybuilders, like you see Greg Doucette, you see Ronnie Coleman, you see Phil Heath, everywhere they go, they're wearing our suits, and they look fantastic.
I'm not going to lie, Phil. You and Martin Ford and Brian Shaw have been the toughest people that we've had to fit. And really Martin more than Brian. Brian's big, but Martin
Has different taper. Yeah, and he's tall, he's wide, yeah.
And you I don't need to explain. You know more than I do.
I got guns.
You look great. Okay. You feel the flexibility in it?
Yeah.
Very good.
Stretch and stuff. So.
Yep. Okay. One of the reasons that you had room, I noticed that you were doing that.
Yep.
And you weren't restricted. We put big pleats in the lining, which allow you to move without compromising the integrity of the garment.
Right.
You sweat, I sweat, we're dudes. That's why we put this extra layer here. It's called a perspiration shield. And if you look closely, you'll see irregular stitching through the armhole. This is where the chest, the back, the shoulder, and the sleeve all meet. So this needs more protection than anything. That pulls the moisture away, preserves the integrity of the garment over time. And see how irregular that is? Like that's not a pure, clean stitch. That's done by hand.
Right.
The reason you want it done by hand here is it's more flexible.
Yes.
And it won't break.
Gotcha.
So this is where all the hand sewing goes into this garment.
That's just something that you don't know unless you've worked with bodies of this proportion. I would bet you that LGFG suits are worn by more cumulative Mr. Olympia like champions than any other suit in the world because like we just know how to work with those guys. And again, just being great at tailoring allows us to do that. So we have to make sure that we're accounting for that for Phil, the backwards pitch sleeve as well. Narrower shoulder, which creates a different fork in the back. We take all of that into consideration when we're cutting those suits, which is why they look great. So we've covered the body shape. We've also covered the overall sort of bodily idiosyncrasies. Now let's talk about lifestyle. Phil's traveling a lot. So again, we want to have garments that travel extremely well, which is also important for Phil to consider that he's not a suit guy, even though he just received, the Hall of Fame and, Arnold Schwarzenegger was there shaking hands, taking photos, Jay Cutler, everybody's there. But typically, Phil is not wearing a tuxedo or a suit, which is more common for guys that are like in movies and stuff. Phil is a more casual guy. So a lot of the tailoring we did for Phil was like safari jackets and bombers, like button bombers. So elegant chic, And the reason that we did that also for Phil is he actually loves clothing. If you look at Phil's Instagram, we're not the only tailor he follows, but he does follow us. So a lot of sort of chic, modern, upscaled casual stuff. Bombers, safari jackets, all button fronts on that. Yeah, we did do a trainer suit because, Phil is a guy that's going to work out. Why not show up in a tailored workout suit, which is one of the most baller garments that's ever been made. I love that garment. And then, of course, a couple of basic suits to cover his sort of award ceremony needs. So we did a navy tux with the black lapels, giving a little stark contrast. Looks amazing. So we have a collection of clothing that really accommodates Phil's lifestyle. While simultaneously paying tribute to the brand of Phil Heath, which is the biggest guy in the room and there's trophies to back that up.